Good evening and welcome to the NC Speakeasy. It is the fourth Wednesday of the month, which means it is the Skog and Green show, Skog and Green show. So even though everybody calls Mark Skog, it is actually Mark Skog, Bull Fox. Just saying. Anyway, so I am Chris Green. I am your host, and as I said, my co-host is Mr. Mark Skog, and we are here to brighten your evening or mourn your sorrows, depending on who your favorite Cleveland sports team is. We all suffer through them, and we all enjoy them. And one of these days, maybe we'll actually get to enjoy a championship. But I'm not keeping my fingers crossed yet. So anyway, how are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing quite well. I'm kicking back with a nice Manhattan, a good evening cocktail. Helps take the edge off of things. It's my drink of choice, and so I'm doing pretty well. And oddly enough, I'm feeling as optimistic about a Cleveland sports team as I think I have in a long, long time. So this should be a fun show tonight. I'm curious as to what you think about the landscape of what's going on in Cleveland sports right now.
Well, I'll put it this way. There's three professional teams in Cleveland, and I think there's only one who's anywhere close to the possibility of winning a championship.
Yeah, but I'm not going to disagree with that. But I'll take one out of three. I mean, most years we're left with nothing, with flounder. You're just floundering through all three franchises. But
Oh, I'm not complaining.
I have to say, the Cavs, their resurgence has been just a joy to watch. These games leading up until the All-Star break and then post-break, even last night's game with Detroit, so much fun. You see a team that's gelling together, and I am thrilled for the last 25 games and heading into the playoffs with this team. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I mean, the Cavaliers, of course, are the team I was referring to as the one that's the closest to a championship contender, in my opinion. I mean, they started off rocky this year. You and I talked about it before the season. We were really worried about the defense and what was going to happen with that, and our fears were confirmed early on the season. This team played zero defense, and then some changes happened. You had David Blatt on the chopping block, according to many in the media, and every fan wanted him gone. And instead of doing the drastic thing, they did the smart thing. They went out and they added to the team, and they also maybe added by subtraction by getting rid of Dion Waiters. So let's talk about that real quick. They trade Dion Waiters to Memphis. Or not Memphis, excuse me, Oklahoma City, and from that move, they ended up getting Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith from the Knicks, and then because of that trade, they also picked up a first-round pick, which they later shipped to Denver, along with another one for Timofey Mozgov. So they essentially traded Dion Waiters, who really didn't fit this team, wasn't playing defense, and pretty much every time he got the ball, just chucked it up. And they've got three players who have now led this team to 18 wins in their last 20 games. Amazing turnaround.
It's an incredible turnaround, and it turned itself around almost immediately. All three of those players have turned out to be better than anything I had expected. I thought Mozgov was just going to be a serviceable center, a body there, someone who could grab some rebounds and put some fouls on people. He's much more athletic than I thought. He moves to the basketball. He moves to the rim well. He runs the floor much better than I expected. He's an athlete. I've said this before. If he could catch the ball on the run, he'd be an all-star. His hands are somewhat suspect, but he is exactly what they need. He brings energy and effort every night. It's been a joy to watch. Iman Shumpert, coming in, injured at first. He's finding his way. I noticed him getting more involved in the offense, taking his shot, but he's a really active, nice defender. He's someone who you can really put on a lot of guys as a matchup. But the sheer joy to me has been watching J.R. Smith. This is a guy.
Who would have thought that?
I mean, who would have thought it? And I think you and I had a conversation this past weekend briefly about it on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was the throw-in. He was the guy that we had to take his salary to get Shumpert. And he has been, honestly, a joy to watch. And I would have never, ever considered saying the phrase a joy to watch with J.R. Smith. He was always an interesting character. I remember his days in Denver where he could go through stretches of really lighting it up. But we've heard all the knucklehead stuff. And you know what amazes me? Not that we haven't seen that, because it's still early on, and who knows with guys like that. You know, that stuff still may rear its ugly head. But he is so much more of a complete basketball player than I had any idea. I wondered, do Knicks fans know this? Is this common knowledge? And I just, because I'm not as down with all the NBA players as some of the other guys are, I mean, he passes well. He passes unselfishly.
Yeah.
I heard a guy who's a gunner, you know, and he joked about it when he first came. Well, if he didn't know the offense, when in doubt, just shoot it.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is that he is willing participant in moving the ball. He's active on defense. He's moving around. He's bringing energy. It's been a pleasure to watch. And so when you count what we gave up, like you said, in waiters and first, and what we got back in return, those moves are a steal. I mean, it totally galvanized this team. Now, before I get too carried away with it, we got to remember all of a sudden LeBron came back from his Miami vacation or whatever the hell that was, and has been an MVP since then. So of course it all starts and stops with him. But let's be honest, that without LeBron, the team is not where it is, of course. But we have to be honest in that without Mozgov, Shumpert, and JR, the team isn't where it is either. So you got to give Griffin a world of credit, and you got to give Blatt a world of credit on making this mesh so quickly. It's been amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, lots of turnover between the players. And before these trades, and even probably the first couple of games after this trades, this team, and they did not play like a team. What you're watching now is team basketball. You see everybody passing the ball. You see ball movement. You see team defense. Defense. I mean, last night's game, they gave up 62 points in the first half. They gave up, what, 30, what was it,
31, I think.
Sorry, yeah, 31 in the second half. You're right. Absolutely.
What a turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, that you would not have seen that earlier this year. After giving up 60 in the first half, they would have given up at least another 60 in the second half, guarantee you, first half of the season, or at least before the hot streak started. And they've locked down defensively. I mean, you see it every game now. And they even said earlier today, Kevin Love is playing defense now. The guy who everybody said can't play defense, he's playing defense. So they're all buying in. They're all playing together as a team. And I don't care what happens tomorrow night's game against the Warriors, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, whether they win or lose isn't going to have anything to do with what happens come playoff time. But I'm just curious to see this team now versus the one that played the Warriors a month and a half ago. And that team didn't have LeBron at the time either.
Yeah, and I'm totally with you. The outcome of tomorrow's game is less important to me than how they play it. You know what I mean? And I'm thrilled for this game tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it all day. I've thought about it more than I care to admit for a regular season NBA game. But really, this is going to be a fun matchup. Both teams playing well, both coming in with a day of rest. I mean, this should be a joy to watch, and I'm very much looking forward to it. You're right. It's the challenge. It's the challenge of matching up with a team like Golden State that I find interesting. It's not so much the outcome, because they can lose this game and still be fine, obviously, but it's what kind of intensity are they going to bring? I think they're going to be really geared up for this game. I think in front of the crowd, I think that they know that the Golden State's the best team in the NBA. There's just no doubt about that. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the favorites to win the title, but they are absolutely the best team in the NBA right now, and I think it's going to be so much fun. I keep looking at these rosters of the Cavs versus other teams, and I see all these guys playing well, and then I keep tending to forget, like, you say, okay, Kyrie against, Kyrie against, oh man, I'm trying to blank, the great point guard for Golden State.
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry, thank you. And then J.R. Smith versus Klay Thompson. He would give Golden State a slight edge there, thinking about Love matching up with their front line. And then all of a sudden it dawns on you, with all the pieces that the Cavs have working well, we also have LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a joy to all of a sudden think, oh, yeah, but we've got the X factor in the best player in the NBA who's playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all of that together, I'm just excited for this matchup and excited for their chances come June, getting into the playoffs. You and I talked about it. I remember this distinctly, and I think we've brought it up on subsequent podcasts about, you started with it, with the defense. I said that, this team doesn't need to be a top 10 defensive team to start the season, but by the time they get to the playoffs, they need to be. And I think they've been there. David Zavik on Twitter, who does a lot of work with the Fear of the Sword blog, was posting some stats in this last week that defensively, the Cavs, ever since like January, have been a top 10 defense in the NBA. They've been playing well. He also pointed out, despite all of our hand-wringing of Kevin Love, and he's been a nice voice to try and tamper people down with this worry about Kevin Love, his month of February has been good. Mm-hmm. His month of February, his shooting percentages are really rising. So whatever was going on, they seem to be finding the offensive fit for Love. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're seeing, and let's be honest, let's give David Blatt a lot of credit with that. Look, I'm not an X's and O's guy when it comes to all the intricacies of team defense in the NBA, but my understanding is that once Mozgov came in, he started to shift a little bit on how they played some of these pick and rolls and how they defended the screens, and that has really worked out for this team. He's got the personnel to run a different kind of defense, and they're buying in and they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about the stuff with Blatt. I mean, I was pretty high on him when they brought him in. I mean, he's got but we all didn't know what he was going to do. And I think I said early on, I had questions about how many minutes he was playing LeBron and Kyrie and his rotations or lack thereof. But the rotation is settled down completely. I mean, they have a solid rotation now. Who's going to play pretty much every night now. And and now that they have Perkins in there, they're going 10 deep at least, whereas they've been sitting at probably 8, maybe 9 because of Marion's injury. So I'm fine with the rotations now. He's definitely done good things. I mean, some of it's been because of blowouts, but he's kept their minutes down lately. You can see it now. LeBron's going out at different times and actually not playing the full quarters at the beginning. He'll play, like he comes out, I think, like the 4 or 5 minute mark in the first quarter now, whereas he'd always play the whole first quarter. And so just little changes they made. And the defensive stuff is a big change. I mean, they made the change on the pick and roll stuff. That was a big thing. They just had to have somebody back there who could defend. And I think that's something, too, that people haven't said much about is, the defense has been great when Mozgov's been in there, but when he leaves the floor, it kind of looks a little bit like it did before. I mean, they're better, but you don't have that presence back there, so you see more layups and stuff once he's out that you don't see when he's in there because him being the intimidator or the hard fouls or whatever. And with them adding Kendrick Perkins now, they're going to have that with that second unit because he'll be in there and he'll be knocking people on their butt left and right. So I think that's only going to help the second unit as well.
Do you think that the addition of Kendrick Perkins do you think that's enough now? I mean, not that they have a whole lot of options since we're past the trade deadline, but, you still have the buyouts and things like that. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of debate. Do you get another big man versus another point guard? Mm-hmm. I was very much in favor of the big man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's clear that Blatt and the Cavs as a whole like Delhi probably a lot more than the fans do.
Hmm.
And I think it's a question of Delhi finding the right role and not getting him too many minutes and asking him to do things that he doesn't want. But is
Hmm.
that enough? Is that enough for you? Do you think that this? I think this is what we're going to see out of the team, but you still have the Ray Allen possibility. Do we need Ray Allen? Do we need another shooter off the bench? Would bringing him in be a concern for you? Because I've heard people worried about would he disrupt the offensive flow that they have going right now. What do you think about that? Is this team settled? And if this team is settled, is it enough to win a title?
Uh, is it settled? I'm not sure. I think the only thing at this point is maybe a guy at the end of the bench. Or I don't think Ray Allen's going to come back now. I think if he was going to, he would have done it right after the All-Star game, as was rumored. I could be wrong, but I don't like the. I heard out there that he wants guaranteed minutes, and I don't like that. Um, if he's going to come, he's going to fit in a role. I mean, I'm fine if they bring him on and add him. He'll be a nice piece to just give you some off the bench scoring, but I don't think they need that right now. It seems like they've got enough scoring. I do worry at times when I see Shumpert and like last night they were jacking up 15, or he jacked up 10 shots and was 2 for 10 from the field. But I think that was just more the wrong people sometimes taking the shots because Kevin Love was in there and did touch the ball for a stretch, so it's just a little bit of balance there. I mean, and J.R. Smith only took 4 shots last night, which is low for him. So
Yeah, it is.
I won't turn down Ray Allen if he wants to come to the team, but I'm not going to guarantee him playing time. If he wants to come and be a part of the team and fit in, great. Otherwise, I don't think they need him. The big man was what they needed. They just didn't have the depth there if somebody went down. And I think Perkins is going to be a great complement to help that second unit because, like I said, when Thompson comes in there, he'll get offensive rebounds, but he's not really a defensive presence. He
He's a
doesn't rebound.
he's a different kind of defensive presence.
Yeah.
He has a versatility that I think is underappreciated.
Mm-hmm.
He's very active,
Mm-hmm.
somewhat the way that Anderson Varejao would be. So that he could do certain things, but what he's not going to do is he's not going to protect the rim,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think he's the hard foul intimidator type that
Exactly.
I think we're expecting out of Kendrick Perkins.
Yep.
Um, I'll be honest. I don't know how much Perkins has left in his tank, but I don't think we're expecting a ton from him.
No. Mm-mm.
If you get 12 minutes a night out of him, and you get 4 hard fouls, and you give some rebounds in there, and just kind of disrupting, in the lane. I think that's if we get that, I think that's enough
Mm-hmm.
for him. Do you think that? I know this is like the loaded big question, and I recognize I'm saying this at the end of February. It's kind of ridiculous, but well, grain of salt. Do you think this team can win a title?
Yes. They
Do you
could win a
th-
title. I could see them losing. I don't see them losing in the first round. I could see them losing after that. So it would not shock me if they lost in the second round, the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals, and it wouldn't shock me if they won. I think when they're playing like they are right now, and they're all into it, they're unbeatable. Um,
okay?
and in a 7-game series, I think they can win 4 out of 7 games against anybody in the NBA, no doubt about it. Now, with what they have now, absolutely. Um, they just, and I think come playoff time, because you see LeBron when he's focused and when he's not, what he can do and what he doesn't do. Um, and he's going to be engaged come playoff time, I think, even more than he is right now. So that's why I say I think the team's going to be there with him. I mean, yes, they're young in certain spots and they don't have experience in certain spots, but I think just as engaged as he'll be, he's going to bring them along with him, and they'll just be firing on all cylinders come playoff time.
Yeah, it's hard because we're seeing them at their peak right now, obviously playing the best basketball that they've had all year, and we're also seeing the East fall apart all
Hmm.
around us. Miami losing Bosch, all of a sudden, any bonus that they got from getting Dragic it's gone.
Hmm.
It looks like Chicago's going to lose, if not for the whole season, for a good chunk of it. They're going to lose Derrick Rose, which is really sad. Happy
Hmm.
as a Cavs fan, but sad for Rose himself.
Yeah.
I hate seeing guys really have career-threatening injuries, and I think that's what we're getting to with him.
Well, yeah,
And
it's
then you
just what,
see,
third or fourth. So.
I mean, two on the meniscus, both ACLs have been
Mhm.
replaced. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I posted on Twitter last night, is he become Brandon Roy?
Yeah,
How
I
much
saw that.
how much cartilage is going to be left in those knees?
Hmm.
But and then Miami's falling, or not Miami, excuse me, Washington is falling apart.
Hmm.
They are looking in serious trouble, and nobody's here in DC. I'm in DC. Nobody really seems to know what's going on with this team. So we're seeing the Cavs at our peak, and with everything breaking the right way around us. With that in mind, say, I tend to have to tap the brakes a bit for myself and say, well, we haven't seen any struggles with this team since they've gotten all their pieces together. And it's a
Hmm.
little bit, I think we're all like, yes, this is it. We're going to make a run. We're going to take the 2 seed. We're going to roll through the Eastern Conference now because everything's problematic. Well, we're going to hit some sort of bump between
Hmm.
now and the playoffs. And I'm hoping it happens before the playoffs and not during it. But we're going to have some sort of trouble. And so I'll be very curious to see what we do and how we respond at that point. But man, you got to love our chances right now. All that said, me trying to rain on the parade, the East is open.
Yeah.
It's right there for the taking. Let's
Well,
hope they can do it.
I think Atlanta's going to have a little bit of a say in that at this point. They're still all firing on all cylinders, and they're all healthy still. I mean, at this point, the biggest thing that's going to hinder the Cavaliers is injuries. If they have an injury, and it is
Yep,
possible. I mean, yes, they had them earlier in the year, but anything is possible in the NBA. It
yep.
just takes one landing awkwardly one time on a rebound or something, and somebody's knees out, and you just lost whoever. But um, yeah, I think they definitely have a great chance. But like I said, anything is possible as far as once they get to the playoffs. I don't see them losing in the first round, but anything after that, it could go either way. I don't think I would expect them to lose before the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'd say they have a very good chance to come out of the East, but once again, time will tell with that. One thing I do have to somewhat disagree with you is I know it was only part of the game, but last night was I would say they did face some resistance finally against the Pistons. So I mean they were down at 14 by 14 points at one point in the third quarter, and they did come back from that, and that is the first time they've really been challenged, I would say, since the streak started.
No, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. I think I was thinking more on like a macro level, not necessarily in
Yeah.
an individual game, but more of a stretch of games where, let's face it, teams will not play well at some points. Everybody
Yep.
has this where they get through a run. I mean, I think Atlanta's been like 500 in their last, 8 or 9 games or something
Mhm.
like that. Do I expect that to continue? No, but
Mhm.
you're always curious to see how a team responds when things get trouble.
Mhm.
Um, Earlier in the year, the Cavs didn't show a lot of, I don't necessarily love this phrase, but I can't think of a better one, a lot of mental fortitude, a lot of mental toughness. They
Mhm.
seemed to put it together once the roster got better and the
Mhm.
pieces fit better. So it's very easy for us to say now, hey, they're clicking, they're fantastic, when everything is clicking.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm kind of curious about. Then again, maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. Maybe that turnaround, like we said, has been harder mentally than we expected, and they just have made it look easier than I thought they would. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I'm thrilled for tomorrow night's game. I think it's going to be a blast to see this and to see how they match up, and to be honest with you, to see how Blatt coaches in a big game.
Mm-hmm.
What's his approach going to be to this? I'm hoping and I expect he's going to coach this game like it's a playoff game, that they're really going to want to win. They should approach it that way, I think. I think we can say that the game is meaningless in the big picture, but the truth is this is a big matchup against an excellent team, and you got them at home, and you're playing well. So come at it aggressive. Give some minutes to your guys that you want to give minutes to. Let's see this team go out and really try and step on the gas against a really good team. I really want to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's a big matchup just to measure themselves and see where they're at
Yeah.
now, as opposed to where they were and where everybody thinks they are. So if they come out and they lay a complete stinker, well, then everybody's going to start panicking. I can guarantee it. Oh, it was all against nobodies, and as soon as we play a real team, we got killed. So
you saw some of that after they lost to the Bulls right before the All-Star game, and then I'm glad, and it wasn't just excuse making, but I'm glad then afterwards, some people said, "Hey, wait a second here. This team, playing the very last game before the All-Star break." Nobody wanted to play this game. They were all heading out the door. Sometimes as a fan, you hate to hear that mentality, but let's be honest. We got to deal with it as it is. That happens, and so I'm not going to fret that it happens. And I think it wasn't a good point to bring up that they just weren't in that game. That excuse should not come into play now. So let's see what they do now.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm sure you'll see the effort tomorrow night with this. Like I said, LeBron didn't play in the first game against them. You got a couple of All-Stars on there with Golden State. You've got Steph Curry is like the leading MVP candidate if you listen to the media right now. The other thing too, a little bit that I don't know how much it's going to play into it, but if you remember. Originally, Blatt was going to be Steve Kerr's head assistant going into this before he took the Cavaliers job. So we got a little bit of coaching showmanship going on, maybe. So should be an interesting game either way. But like I said, I don't care what the final result is. It really isn't going to mean a big deal. Of course, I want them to win, and I want it to be a great game because I'm going to watch it. It's on national TV. But at the end of the day, whether they win or lose, it's not going to tell you what's going to happen come playoff time.
No, it's not. You're right.
So, all right. So we talked Cavs. Let's get into dysfunction for a few minutes, and then we'll end on something maybe more positive. So there was this whole big hullabaloo about nothing, and I mean, in all honesty, the logo for the Browns changed slightly. Everybody was upset because it was hyped up. I don't really think the Browns hyped it up a ton. People are saying they did. I mean, other than the thing with Twitter where they blacked out the logo temporarily, I really don't give a damn. And if this team was winning, nobody else would give a damn either. But because they lose and because of all the reports out there about how dysfunctional the organization is, and our quarterback that we drafted last year is in rehab, and we don't have a quarterback except for the midget who can't throw it more than 5 yards down the field, blah, blah, blah. And of course our wide receiver is suspended again. That's happened since we were on last. So the Cleveland Browns.
Well, let me say a couple things. I found more of the logo stuff funny. I had said beforehand I didn't think they were going to do anything major. I was laughing right before the reveal, saying, "What if they just keep the helmet and change the face mask?" And of course, that's what they did. Now, I think they hyped it up a little bit more than you do because they were actively seeking you to sign up on an email list so you can get a first glimpse at the thing, and all that. I think it was foolish. I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm not sure I'm one of these people who buys into if they can't get a logo rollout right, how are we expecting to draft the right quarterback? I don't think that those two things go hand in hand, all right? So let's be honest about that. The one interesting thing that nobody's talked about that I heard Alex Shiner say on Bull and Fox yesterday was that basically made it sound, if you kind of read between the lines, that the league didn't. This is how I read it. Let me say that. He said something like, we consulted a lot with the league, and we felt it was best to, keep the logo kind of the same. And I got the impression that the second "we" in his sentence was not necessarily the Browns, but the NFL. I kind of wondered if the league said to them, your team is in a lot of chaos. We're getting reports out. You haven't won in forever. You have a fan base that is still jittery about the move. And I can't believe I'm actually saying these words out loud, but they are. Anytime you hear something, people get worried about that stuff. And so I almost wondered if the league said to them, do what you want with the uniforms, but tap the brakes on changing any kind of logo. Keep it mellow with that. It was just, I could be totally wrong. It's an impression I got from that whole thing. That's the only thing that, to me, I thought was a little interesting and that maybe wasn't really out there and covered. Because he did say they talked to the league with it, and it was within that context that he brought up that we decided not to make any major changes with that. Mm-hmm. That said, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. I've been having a lot of Twitter arguments with other fans. Some agree with me, some don't, and that's fine. But I fall into the camp of more buying the chaos out of Berea stories that are coming up. Mm-hmm. A few weeks back, Jason Lockenfora dropped just a massive bombshell on all of us. No, bombshell's not the right word, but he came out with both gun blazing against Berea in the front office, and he just leveled them for the dysfunction there. A lot of people pushed back. That's fine. That's fair. I heard Tony Pauline talk about it, the DraftNet insider guy, saying he heard similar stuff at the Combine. Everything about this team lends me to buy those stories to a certain degree. It's a team that still can't seem to get itself going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. We've got an owner that we're just not sure what he's interfering with. Or interfering may not be the right word. Interfering may be the way the fans look at it. Involved is how he would say it. Mm-hmm. We don't know. We've got a GM who has admitted to texting things down to the sidelines, which I think in and of itself doesn't warrant a huge penalty given the context of what he was texting, but in the sense of what that means within the organization isn't great. Jumping down your coach's throats in a game and questioning them down to them during a game, that's pretty damn dumb. And I'm surprised that's happening. You've got 2 first-round picks who are just, their lives are a mess. You've got a quarterback situation in limbo. You had an offensive coordinator who couldn't wait to get the hell out of the door. And no matter what you think of Kyle Shanahan, this is what I've had to say to a lot of people. A lot of people are looking at Shanahan and say, okay, yeah, he gives his 32-point presentation, but they're saying he's a jerk, he's going to the media with this stuff, it's a bad way to do it. My response is stipulated. I'll grant all that. That doesn't mean he was wrong. That doesn't mean he was wrong with his complaints. So I know a lot of people are saying, I don't buy into the big chaos theories. I'm buying into it more, and it's hard for me not to buy into it until they can show me it's not chaotic. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Chris? It's like if you – I've got 15 years of chaos. I've got 3 years of chaos under Jimmy Haslam as an owner. I can't just buy in because Berea is telling me, no, we're not chaotic, and all the fans are telling me the people who are promoting the chaos are disgruntled ex-employees. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of things you're asking me to buy into when I see evidence of a team that kind of collapsed at the end of the season, that first-round draft pick's a mess, and then all the other front office things that came up. I mean, what do you think about all this?
Cleveland Browns. Yeah.
Same old?
Same old Browns.
I mean, how can I? This is
That's
what I
a,
get. I get a little frustrated, when I'm arguing with people, and it's fine. Look, I'm not saying everybody's got to buy into my point of view. That's fair, but it seems to me like how can you buy into that it's not a mess at this point?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I just don't think, that they. I can't believe that they're all on the same page. I just can't believe
No.
it. I don't think
Mm.
good organizations have this kind of shitty problems that constantly swirl around them. I just don't see it. I see this crap happening for the team in the town that I live in. The Redskins do this stuff. The Redskins,
Mhm.
all the stories locally are about the same crap that comes out in Cleveland. And and
Mhm.
I'm thinking like this isn't what they're talking about in cities that are winning. It's
Nope.
just not. I mean, here, let me put a quick example. Philly makes a change in the front office structure, and Howie Roseman kind of gets out as kind of the chief guy picking the players, and he's dealing more with the salary cap. And yeah, some people are concerned, but that's a team that's clicking. They're rolling, and it's not the general focus of everything. In this town, that's what it is.
And it's just like this. What I was saying with the logo, losing befits
Yeah.
losing, and so everything is micromanaged and overanalyzed and highly publicized. And until you can get the focus on the football field with a solid winning team, I mean, in all honesty, you think back to when the Browns were 7-4. You weren't hearing all of this stuff. But
No, you weren't.
as soon as they had that, they started losing again, and then it's back to same old Browns. Oh yeah, this stuff's been going on the whole time. Um, it's just
Well, I,
go ahead.
Well, I will say this: when they were 7-4, Ray Farmer had a very curious press conference when they were winning, which he seemed to not really want to support Brian Hoyer, and you got
Mhm,
this weird impression of like, man, he's really putting the pressure on Hoyer
mhm,
right before the Cincinnati game, and why would he do that? There were a lot of questions on what he was saying, and
mhm,
then they go out and they look like world beaters against Cincy, and then the wheels
mhm.
fell off after that. And I don't blame Ray Farmer for causing it to happen, but it was still kind of like, why would you have this pressure? Why would you
Yeah.
have this pressure with that tone to the media? It just seemed to be rookies running the show type of thing. Like, I
Well,
don't think that would
that
help. It's that point of view.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're not wrong, and some of that is the fact that, like you said, he was a rookie GM. He gained a lot of power in the last year from the power struggle with Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi when Haslam canned them and turned it out, or pretty much turned everything over to Ray Farmer. So he went from just being a scouting backup GM, whatever you want to call him, personnel guy, to he was running all of football operations. In all honesty,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one thing too about Farmer is whenever he speaks, he comes off as very condescending.
He
Like
does.
I know more than you. Don't you dare question me. That kind of stuff. I mean, you heard it several times whenever they'd ask him about particular players. With the, I mean, we saw how horrible the special teams were in the return game was this year, and so you had the beat guys asking, well, how about Josh Cribbs or so and so, and I don't care about Cribbs. I mean, Cribbs wasn't that great when he was actually with the Colts this year. He had a few good plays, but he had several bad ones that I saw too. So it
You're
wasn't
right
just
about
about
that.
him, but why didn't they do something? It's like, and the wide receivers too. He just had to be the smartest guy in the room. Oh, I don't need to draft a first round guy. The guys I got are just fine, and where did that get them by the end of the year, in all honesty, but on both fronts? So um, sometimes you got to suck up the ego a little bit and just play to the masses, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just makes some of these things go away because why? I mean, why make negative things there that aren't there? And like exactly what you said, everybody was feeling good, and then he had that press conference, and then it was like, okay, what's going on? And then at the end, you see what happens with the team finishing the season, then you hear about all these other things start coming out, and it's like, okay, there's that Browns we all love to hate.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. The other thing I would say to fans and people out there listening is that I feel like there's been a debate amongst the beat guys covering this team, amongst fans on Twitter, on the radio, in blogs about what to do with the quarterback situation. And I've heard it said somewhat, but I think it constantly gets forgotten. There is, and I really firmly believe this, there is no quarterback miracle that's going to happen for this team.
Nope.
We are going to be straddled with a bottom 5 quarterback in the league next year.
Most likely,
we need to understand this right now. I had a chat with someone on Twitter tonight who said very astutely, because the Browns are interviewing McNown right now. What's it, Josh McNown? I can't remember all the McNowns.
McCown, yeah, Josh McCown.
McCown. So they're interviewing them. Half of Twitter is, why are they interviewing this guy? What's going on? And and I talked with the guy Sean on Twitter, who very astutely pointed out, outside of an 8-game stretch with the Bears, he's been terrible his whole career. Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And my analogy is, it's 2 a.m., we're at the bar, we want to go home with somebody. She's it. Mm-hmm. And we're not exactly some sort of prize. We've been acting like a dipshit all night, spilling drinks on ourselves. We're going to get stuck with somebody, and It's not going to be pretty. And I think we need to recognize that. And unless Ray Farmer and Mike Pettin and Jimmy Haslam have some miracle trick that they're going to pull out of their bag, we're going home with a fairly bad quarterback this year. And the only reason I bring this up is that if they sign McNown, if they sign Sanchez, if they get Locker, if Brian Hoyer comes back, they're all pretty much the same quarterback to me.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are taking you to the playoffs. I don't think any of them are taking you to 7 wins, to be honest with you. I think we kind of got there through some smoke and mirrors. So I hate to say lower your expectations for Browns fans, because our expectations are pretty low, but it almost seems kind of pointless to be arguing about whether it should be this guy or that guy when it's just not going to be good. It's all going to be warts. And here's the rough thing, Chris, and I don't want to dwell on it too much. I don't see a way out of it. I don't see a way out of it unless you're willing to package a truckload for Marcus Mariota, or you cross your fingers and hope and pray that Johnny Manziel pulls it together, because I think we're stuck. And we either stink really bad and get a high draft pick for 16 and luck our way into a great quarterback, or we just muddle through, and that is not a pleasant thing to think about, but I think that's where we're at.
Here's my thought on the quarterback situation. You're right. There's no miracle workers out there. The only, and I know he's injured, but I think if I'm gonna just take a chance on somebody, I guess I might as well try to get Ryan Mallett. He's got very limited game action, but in all honesty, is he going to be any worse than any of those other guys? And maybe
no,
he does have
he's not going to be worse. He's not going to be worse, and he might have an upside. Here's my only thing with Mallett is that you hear he wants to re-sign in Houston, and I'm going to guess they're going to re-sign him.
It's possible. So that's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
I'm with you. I'm Mallett, Locker, whoever. I mean, if your general philosophy is, well, maybe one of these young guys will hit a little bit better because they have more room to grow, fine with me. I'm okay with that. I can't really complain about any of them, because there's just no great option in front of us. There really isn't.
No, and that's why I say if I'm going to take a chance on somebody, I might as well. If you can get him, I would just take the chance only because we saw him play in Cleveland when the weather wasn't great. He's got a pretty strong arm, which means he can make all the throws. He's not. None of them are accurate, so that's not really going to come into play.
They are really not
Um,
accurate.
yeah, so I mean, might as well. I just say take a chance on the young guy, and if he throw him out there, and if he sucks, he sucks, and we're in the same position we were probably going to be anyway.
Yep. Yep.
So, all right, well, let's get away from the depressing Cleveland Browns, and
That
let's
was
go
depressing,
to
by the
the
way. That was
yeah,
really
yeah,
depressing.
yeah, it always is. So let's go to the Indians, America's team, apparently, at least according to the national media, guys.
This has been a stunning event for me. Um, Sometimes I come off as somewhat cynical, maybe. I like to think of myself as a real.
No, not you.
I like to think of myself as a realist. I mean, I'm not Marcus here, okay? I'm not like ready to light the sports world on
You,
fire.
you know what though? It's not. It has nothing to do with being cynical. It's all about you're a Cleveland sports fan. We're so used to
Yeah.
all the negative. We're all freaking cynical.
Well, but here's the thing. I think I like to try and look at my teams as glass half full, believe it or
Yeah.
not. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people might find that surprising, but I actually do try and do that.
Mhm.
I am not necessarily approaching that way with the Indians, so to my great surprise, and that has given me great pause, is to see the national media really rallying behind the Indians with these
Mhm.
preseason picks. I think Peter Gammons, who will forget more about baseball than I'll ever know in my lifetime, has
Mhm.
them ranked fourth. I think ESPN had them fifth in one of their preseason polls. I'm seeing them, ranked much higher than I think locally fans look at this team. And
Mhm.
that surprises me. That really made me give a pause. And over the last week or so, I've been trying to re-examine this team and say to myself, what are they seeing that I am missing? Why am I kind of down? Not down. It's not down on this Indians team. I think that they have. I think their ceiling is fairly high. I don't think their floor is as low as it used to be. So I think that they're going to fall in that, you know, 80 to 85 win team, you know.
Mhm.
But I see a team that is also, when I read their previews of the team, of the Indians, I think they tend to really look at the team as glass half full. I see this Indians team with a lot of question marks along the way. Um, and I see a lot of players that I think some fans, and certainly some of the national media are almost locking into these either bounce back years
Comeback seasons. Yeah.
or duplicating high performing seasons that I think, not to say that they can't do that, but is it very realistic to expect all those things to break that way? And what I mean is this. Um, you know, are all our young pitchers going to pitch as well as they did in the second half last year? Is Corey Kluber going to produce another Cy Young season? Do I think Kluber's going to stink? Absolutely not. I think he's going to be a very good pitcher this year. I don't know that he'll be a Cy Young pitcher. Do I think Brantley's going to fall off the cliff? No, I don't. But I don't know that he's going to be a top 3 MVP candidate type player. I
Mhm.
don't know that he can reproduce that because he's never produced that. He's had a nice steady climb, so has Kluber. My bigger question are with guys like in the lineup, guys like Kipnis and Chisenhall. And I was trying to look up some stats. I'm not a huge stat guy, but I was trying to look up some things. And, I see Chisenhall with that smoking hot start last year and a great first half and an equally dismal second half last
Mhm.
year. So who is he? Is he the smoking hot first half guy or is he the horrible second half guy? I don't know, but I think some of these national guys are putting more money in that he will be closer to that smoking first half. And I'm not sure why that is. It's the same with Kipnis. Kipnis in 13, he had a very good season. He had an excellent June. I think May and June were fantastic for him. And then he really tailed off in last year, which everyone blamed to injuries. He didn't have a great year. He had a pretty poor year.
Yep.
But everyone says, well, he'll bounce back to 13. Will he? I don't know. I don't know that we know that. I don't know that we've seen enough of a track record from some of these guys to assume those things would happen. So that's why I was really saying this, and I don't mean to ramble on, but I'm thinking of it as like, well, why am I not seeing what these guys are seeing? You know, in some sense, I'm closer to the team. I'm a fan. I'm rooting for them to be all that. So why am I not as optimistic? And so that's kind of where I see the lineup. That's where I see my big questions. Are you feeling the same way I am, or are you more optimistic about where they're going to go?
In all honesty, I think they're going to be very similar to where they were last year. Last year I said I thought they were a 82 to 87 win team. I think they're still an 82 to 87 win team. There is a lot of question marks. You're right. They have injury issues, people coming off of injuries. You've got their big free, or not even free agent, their big acquisition, and only really, well, they have two acquisitions this summer, this offseason, Gavin Floyd and Brandon Moss. Brandon Moss is a definite power threat if he's healthy. He had, I believe it was hip issues last year that he's coming back from. He's never been a big batting average guy. He does have power, so I'll be interested to see how he comes back off of his injury. That's a big question mark. Nick Swisher is been very underwhelming in his Indians career so far. I mean, he was pretty much injured all last year. He wasn't very good for pretty much the entire first season here, except for September. So I really don't know that I can expect much from him this year. And Michael Bourne's been hurt pretty much the entire time he's been here. And I mean, while he's been decent when he does play, he's definitely not what was advertised when they signed him. I mean, he's not stealing bases anymore. He's
so I'm going to interrupt you just for a quick second, Chris,
yep.
with Bourne. So from what I read, and because I don't know baseball as well as I know the other sports, but I know it well enough that, you know, my understanding, a lot of Bourne's statistical value was based on his legs, on his ability to run, and that's not coming back. You know, he doesn't. He's not that player anymore.
Yeah, I mean, when he was at Atlanta, he wasn't really a big batting average guy. He was a, I would say, average hitter, 270-ish for the most part, but he would steal 50 bases. I don't think he stole 50 bases in his 2 years here.
No, I don't think so.
Let alone a year. So when he's not, and his defense has been below average since he's been here as well. I mean, he was supposed to be this Gold Glove center fielder, and he's been very underwhelming out there for the most part. I mean, he's made some decent plays, but he's also made a lot of bad plays in the field. So just the two big free agent signings that they actually did go out and make have really bombed so far. I mean, I hope they turn it around this year, but I'm not real optimistic. I would say, if anything, of the two, Bourne's probably the more likely to have a decent season, and I'm not even going to say a good season, but a decent season. Go ahead.
What are you expecting out of spring training? Is there any position battles you're focusing on? Is there anything that you need to see to say, oh, that makes me feel good? Or is the statistical info that you get out of spring training just not enough to really base anything on? Like, what are you hoping for? What are you interested in?
I'm curious to see who ends up playing right field. You know, they talk about Moss as the most likely candidate, which is kind of surprising to me because in Oakland he was a first base and DH pretty much always. So I'm not sure how that's going to work defensively, and we all know how horrific they were defensively last year, and how many games they cost themselves with their defense. I mean, part of the reason they pitched so well in the second half is because the defense was much better, and a lot of that was getting rid of Cabrera and inserting Ramirez as shortstop. So I think you still have a lot of question marks over there, not only with Chisenhall's bat, but with his glove. He's a average defender at best, I think. Ramirez, he's coming off. This will be his first full season, assuming he stays up here. So I mean, you've got a question mark there. Kipnis he's coming off injury. He's number one. He regressed defensively last year. I mean, he was an okay second baseman, but last year he was terrible. Will he hit again? I mean, he always hit in the minors, so average-wise, I would expect his average to come up this year. But I mean, really, are we going to expect him to hit 15? I don't know that we can or should.
Yeah.
I think Santana at first base is going to be better than him playing. I mean, he's decent at first base.
He is actually.
He was a terrible catcher, and I won't say terrible. He was below average at catcher. He was a horrific third baseman. So the fact that he's only focusing on first base this year, I think can only help his bat because he really, really, really struggled early last year, and it seems like once he became the everyday first baseman, he picked it up. So I would expect him.
I agree.
I expect him to hit at least. I'm going to say at least 25 home runs this year. I'm going to say I think he's definitely going to have a much higher than a 230 batting average. So I think he's poised to have a good year. So I expect at least 260, 270 with 25 plus home runs, and I think he'll have his first 100 RBI year this year. So I think he's going to be solid. I think Gomes is solid behind the plate. I don't know if he'll hit 20 home runs again or not, but I have no issues with him. I think he'll hit 280 and be a great catcher. I mean, Brantley, like you said, I don't know that he's a top 3 MVP candidate. I think he's an above-average player, and he'll be a solid player for this team, but I don't know that he's that good, and we'll see. Now, moving to the pitching side, there's a lot of question marks with the pitching. I mean, I said last year before the season started, I did not want Carlos Carrasco in the starting rotation. They put him in the rotation, and he was horrific. They moved him to the bullpen. Awesome. Which is what I had wanted them to do, and he was great there. But then they moved him back into the rotation in the second half, and he was like a completely different pitcher. It's like whatever happened in the bullpen just turned him around. So are we going to see the Carlos Carrasco of the second half? Are we going to see the Carlos Carrasco who pitched before that, who was just pretty much a batting practice pitcher? That is a huge question mark. He doesn't have to be a dominant pitcher. He just needs to be good.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a very legitimate question with him. You can pose the same question with Salazar. You can pose the same question with House. I don't know whether we know what he is. You can pose especially the same question with Bauer. I see talent. I see depth out of that starting pitching staff. Those are positives. Those are very positive things that I have to remind myself not to overlook.
Yep.
Because I tend to say, well, it's a question mark. But let's be honest. It's been a while since we've seen an Indian starting staff where we felt beyond the first one or two, like, hey, man, this is some depth here. We've got some talent here. You know, I have no idea on Galvin Floyd. I couldn't tell you anything about him beyond, as far as what to expect since he's coming off an injury. But, you look at all that. Hell, they just signed Bruce Chen. Now, granted, I think he's done, but who knows? I mean,
he's left-handed. He can pitch till he's 100.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? He may fill a niche for there. So in that sense, I get what they're doing, and there's a lot of positives to see out of that. So I have to remind myself not to be so negative on that staff just because they have question marks. Probably every damn staff in the majors is filled with question marks. So yes, those are things that can be pointed out. And I have to, and I'm more saying this almost as talking to myself, I have to remind myself that just because they're question marks, and even if they start up and down, there is something fun to watching some of these guys develop
Hmm.
and to see if they can pull it together. And so I gotta remind myself not to expect a finished product. Like I know that, but sometimes there's fun in not having a finished product and seeing it pull together. Because if they all do start to perform, and the odds are that they all won't, but the odds are that some of them will, we could have makings of a really nice staff.
Hmm.
Is the lineup enough to carry us through? What can you tell me about the pen, Chris? You know more about it than I do. What are we looking at here?
Bullpen should be solid again. You got Cody Allen's the closer, no question about it. You don't have to deal with John Axford and will he blow the game or not. So you got your closer set. You've got your setup guys. You've got let's see, Atchison's more of an early inning guy. Um, and you've got your lefties. Oh shoot, I'm blanking a little bit. I haven't looked at the bullpen. I'm not worried about the bull. I guess it's because I'm not worried about the bullpen. The
Yeah, no,
bullpen was
that's fair.
solid last year. So um, you got Hagedon, who knows what he is. He's either really good or really bad.
Yeah,
Uh, so as one of your lefties, you got the other lefty. Oh, goodness, I cannot
yeah, I'm
the
drawing a
the
blank
rookie
too.
the rookie that came up last year who was very good. He'll be in there. Like I said, Atchison is your early innings guy who keeps pitching at 40. Um, oh man, I don't know why I'm blanking so bad on the
That's all
bullpen
right. I'm
today.
sorry I put you on the spot with it,
No,
but
I need my roster in front of me.
well, I mean, at least that's something that we know that we're feeling pretty good about.
Yeah.
And and I will say that's the one thing that I have noticed that you can remake on the fly
Hmm.
during a season is a bullpen. That's where you can find some relatively cheap trades. That's where you can bring your some guys up from the minors. That's where you can trade a minor league guy for someone else on somebody else's roster and bring him on in. So that is one
Kyle
area that.
Crockett. Kyle
Oh yeah,
Crockett.
that's right.
That was the other one.
So I've seen the Indians do it. I've seen the Indians remake a bullpen on the run
Hmm.
and perform pretty well. So I feel pretty good about that, even if they don't start off well. That I think that'll be all right. What
Okay.
do you? I mean, I don't want us to get too far
No, go
ahead.
for it.
Um, well, I mean, Hagedon's a good guy for me to
Hmm.
keep an eye on in spring training to see
So
how he's doing.
I forgot our two our veterans back there actually who were rock solid last uh, Brian Shaw and Mark Zipchinski.
Yep.
So Francona doesn't burn them out from pitching 100 games. Those two were great last year too, so they really solidify that bullpen before you get to Cody Allen.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be good. Well, I mean, I am saying that the pre- the predictions of the national media got me thinking a lot about the Indians and
Hmm.
got me questioning, like I said, where I was viewing on them. But I have to say, it also got me a little excited about this. I'm looking forward to, I'm not a guy who's going to follow every inning of spring training. I'll check up on things and I'll read a couple times a week what people are saying and seeing
Hmm.
out of there. But the start of the year should be fun, and the Cavs should be obviously playing well, so it should be an exciting time to when they finally get back to Cleveland and start to open things up. At least we can feel that team has the potential of a playoff team. As
Yeah.
as maybe glass half full as I am, or glass half empty as I am about the Indians, even someone like me can concede it's definitely the potential of a playoff team there.
Yeah, absolutely. If everything goes the Indians' way, they can definitely make the playoffs. Like I said, I don't think I think on the low end you're talking around 80 wins for them this year. So I
Okay.
think I really do think they'll be in playoff contention. I don't know that they're going to get to the playoffs, but I think they'll be there. I think they're going to be within that 5 games or within that wild card matchup. I mean, that was one of the things I was kind of surprised I heard Fallen Fox mention the other day is that they had the Indians, the sixth-ranked team in baseball, with 85 wins. It's like, are they really expecting everybody to be that bad this year? because 85 wins is such a low number for playoffs. And
It
it's like,
is.
and they even said that the Indians were, I think, the third-ranked team in the American League. It's like, wow, that's. I mean, I understand parity, but that's still such a low win total.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I have to admit that some of my failings on baseball in recent years, I don't have a great feel for the rest of the league. I have a better feel for the division, but I really don't know what's happening in the East. In terms of I know the Orioles took it last year, and I don't see the Yankees as being anything better than they were. But I just don't know where the rest of these teams are. Excuse me,
Well,
are headed.
in all honesty, the place that's improved the most this offseason has been the Central Division. I mean, Detroit's made some moves, so they've kind of turned things over a little bit. They subtracted Scherzer, and Rick Porcello is gone, um, as they want a little bit more offense. But the White Sox, who I don't think they're getting enough credit, in all honesty. They went out and they got Jeff Samardzija from the A's, and they picked up Dave Robertson from the Yankees. So they've got a nice dynamic duo in the starting rotation now with Chris Sale and Samardzija, and now they have a closer, which is one of their bullpen was their biggest weakness last year, other than their offense, even though they do have the reigning Rookie of the Year and the Canadian player,
Oh yeah.
or not
Yeah,
Canadian,
I know what you're
Cuban.
thinking of.
Yeah,
Yes,
Jose, is it Jose Ramirez? No,
uh,
Jose Abreu.
yes, thank you.
Uh, so I think they're going to do some big things in the division. I think Detroit's going to be right there, even though they're getting a little bit older. They still have Verlander, they still have David Price, they still have Anibal Sanchez, so they've still got a great rotation
Yeah,
and a
that is
ton
a
of
great
bats.
rotation.
So they're going to be there. I mean, Kansas City, I think, is going to regress. They made some key subtractions this year, so I don't see them getting back to the World Series. That's for sure. And I mean, Minnesota is Minnesota. I don't see them doing much, but it's very wide open this year. I think the Central has a very good chance to be the toughest division in the American League, which is pretty surprising, actually. Um,
Yeah,
so, but anything's possible. I mean, the Giants have won 3 out of the last 5 World Series, and considering the teams they've had, that's shocking. So,
yeah.
but all right. So, why don't you go ahead and give your final thoughts for tonight, and we'll
Well,
go from there.
obviously, as we talked about, my biggest thoughts are with the Cavs. It's I think we said this a little bit before the start of the season. I am going to enjoy. I have to remind myself because all of us who are passionate sports fans tend to get caught up in the minutia of things. What's the rotation like for this? What is this guy doing? What's that? We get bogged down in the details of everything day to day. We're on Twitter, we're listening to radio, we're reading blogs. But the truth is, I need to step back a little bit and take a look that this team's the Cavs have got 25 games left to go. They've got a wonderful game tomorrow night against the Warriors. I really want to enjoy this stretch run that they're going to go through now. We don't often have teams who are clearly one of the 2, 3, 4 best teams in the league. We've got that now.
Mm-hmm.
And so as myself as a fan, and I would recommend it to other fans, people who are listening, to definitely take a chance to really enjoy this team now. Watch as many games as you can. This is a unique run. It's got the possibility of being the best Cavs team we've ever seen.
Yep.
And I'm going to set that in. I'm going to really enjoy it. And tomorrow night is going to be a big thing for me in that regard. So that's kind of where my thoughts are in Cleveland sports right now.
Absolutely. I mean, who wants to talk about the negative Nellies that are the Cleveland Browns when you've got a Cavaliers team that is exciting to watch and has a very, very good chance to play for the NBA championship come June? Will they get there? Time will tell. But enjoy the ride, Cleveland, because it's been a fun ride already, and I think we've got a lot more ride to watch yet. It's lots of that team is very fun to watch. They play as a team, which is nice, but you also see the highlight reel plays every single night, whether it's the full court passes from Kevin Love or the alley-oops from whoever, from Kyrie to LeBron or J.R. Smith to Mozgov or whatever. They're all doing it at this point.
Yeah.
So it's a blast. Enjoy it while you can. Don't worry about football until the end of April when it's draft time again, and have fun.
Yep. I agree. Well said, Chris. Well said.
All right. Stay warm, Cleveland. I know I don't have to worry about that. Mark, you stay warm back east.
Thank you, sir.
Away from the polar vortexes or whatever the hell they want to call it. So that's going to be all for Mark and I tonight. We'll be back next Wednesday with the two old guys, John and Chris, and then me. So the young, best looking of the three. So I'm sure they'll get me back for that comment. But thanks for joining us. This has been the NC Speakeasy, and along with Mark Skog, I am Chris Green, and have a good night.